You have been lied to about what Jesus looked like. If I asked you to picture the Son of God right now, your mind would likely drift to the Renaissance paintings, the soft features, the gentle eyes, the lamb in his arms. But there is another image, a vision so terrifying, so alien, and so overwhelming that it has been virtually censored from Sunday school curriculums and popular culture. It is found in the Old Testament, hidden in the dense prophetic chapters of the book of Daniel. This isn't the suffering servant of Isaiah. This is a being with eyes like flaming torches, a face like lightning, and a voice that sounds like a riot. This is the biblically accurate vision that leaves prophets comatose. But as we stare into this terrifying face, we find ourselves staring into a mystery that has broken the brains of theologians for 2,000 years. Because hidden in this description is a single, bizarre detail, a glitch in the narrative that sparks one of the fiercest debates in biblical history. Did Daniel see the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ, or did he see something else entirely? Today, we are not just reading a verse. We are entering the throne room to uncover the true face of divine power. To understand the sheer weight of what happens in Daniel chapter 10, you have to strip away the sterility of a modern Bible study and put yourself in the dirt on the banks of the Tigris River. The year is roughly 536 BC. The Babylonians have fallen. The Persians are in power. Daniel is no longer the young man who defied Nebuchadnezzar. He is old, perhaps in his 80s. And he is physically and spiritually shattered. The text tells us he has been mourning for 3 full weeks. 21 days of no meat, no wine, no lotions to soothe his dry skin. He is in a state of absolute deprivation, starving his body to sharpen his spirit, desperate for a word from God regarding the fate of his people. He is empty. And it is into this vacuum of silence and hunger that the universe suddenly rips open. Daniel looks up, and the description he writes down is frantic, grasping for metaphors that don't quite exist in human language. He sees a man, but that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting. This figure is clothed in linen, the fabric of the high priest, but his waist is cinched with the fine gold of uphaz, a specific rare purity of gold that signifies royalty. But it is the body itself that defies physics. Daniel describes the body as like beryl or chrysolite. Imagine a form that isn't made of skin and bone, but of a translucent, semi-precious gem, glowing from the inside out with a sea green or golden fire. It is a body made of living light. Then Daniel looks at the face. He doesn't say it was bright. He says it had the appearance of lightning. Think about the visceral reaction you have to a lightning strike nearby. That primal flinch, that fear of raw, uncontained energy. Now imagine that energy confined to the shape of a face, staring directly at you. His eyes are flaming torches, piercing, burning, inescapable. His arms and legs aren't flesh. They are burnished bronze, gleaming like metal fresh out of a smelter's furnace, radiating heat and invincible strength. And when he opens his mouth, it isn't a whisper. It is the sound of a multitude. Close your eyes and imagine the roar of a stadium with 100,000 people screaming at once. That wall of sound, that physical vibration that hits your chest, that is the voice of this being. The impact of this vision is devastating. The men with Daniel don't even see the figure, yet a great terror seizes them, and they flee, scrambling to hide in the rocks, sensing a predator they cannot see. Daniel is left alone. His knees buckle. The scripture says his comeliness turned to corruption. That means his face went deathly pale, his body gave up, and he collapsed face first into the dirt, paralyzed by the sheer proximity of holiness. This is the terrifying reality of the divine. And for centuries, the church has looked at this passage and said, "This is him. This is Jesus before Bethlehem." The evidence for this being a Christophany, an appearance of Christ, is not just based on a hunch. It is forensic. When we fast forward 600 years to the island of Patmos, the Apostle John has a vision of the resurrected Jesus in Revelation chapter 1. And when you lay Daniel's description next to John's description, They are not just similar, they are identical. A match. Daniel sees a belt of fine gold. John sees a golden sash. Daniel sees a face like lightning. John sees a face like the sun in full strength. Daniel sees eyes like torches. John sees eyes like a flame of fire. Daniel hears the sound of a multitude. John hears the sound of many waters. Even the reaction is the same. Both prophets collapse as if dead. The logic is impenetrable. If John saw Jesus, and Daniel describes the exact same person, then Daniel saw Jesus. It seems like an open and shut case. We are looking at the pre-incarnate glory of the Son of God. But then, the entity speaks. And with one sentence, he throws a wrench into the entire theological machine. In verse 13, this glorious being explains why he was late. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. Freeze frame. Analyze what just happened. This being, who shines with the glory of God, who has eyes of fire, is admitting that he was stuck in a fistfight with a demon, the spiritual prince of Persia, for 3 weeks. He is admitting that he was stalemated. He is admitting that he needed backup. He says, essentially, I couldn't get past him until Michael showed up to help me. This is the detail that causes theologians to sweat. Because if this is Jesus Christ, the Word made flesh, the creator of the universe, the omnipotent God, how is it possible that a created being, a fallen angel, could hold him back for 1 second, let alone 3 weeks? Does God need help? Does the Creator need the assistance of Michael the Archangel to defeat a demon? The theological implications are staggering. If this is Jesus, and he was withstood, does that mean he isn't all-powerful? This single verse has created a schism in biblical scholarship. It forces us into a corner where we have to choose between 3 difficult options. The angelic view. This is the position held by many modern scholars who prioritize the logic of God's power. They argue that because God cannot be resisted by a demon, this figure cannot be Christ. Therefore, despite the golden belt and the lightning face, this must be a high-ranking angel, perhaps Gabriel, or an unnamed warrior seraph. In this view, the similarities to Jesus in Revelation are just a uniform. Just as a general and a king might wear similar medals, high-ranking angels reflect the glory of the God they serve. It neatly solves the problem of the fight. Angels are finite. Angels can get stuck in battle. Angels need help from Michael. It makes sense, but it leaves us with an uncomfortable dissatisfaction. Why would the Bible use the exact same description for an angel that it uses for God? The kenosis view. This view fights to keep the vision as Christ. Proponents argue, yes, Jesus is God, and yes, he is all-powerful. But we know from the New Testament that Christ often voluntarily limits his power to operate within the rules of the world he created. We call this kenosis, or self-emptying. We see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane being strengthened by an angel. We see him accepting help. If the incarnate Christ could accept angelic help, why not the pre-incarnate Christ? Perhaps he was engaging in this spiritual war not as the omnipotent judge, but as the commander of the host, fighting shoulder to shoulder with his angels to demonstrate how spiritual victories are won. He wasn't stuck because he was weak. He was engaged because he chose to be. But there is a third option, a detective solution that might just solve the whole puzzle. It is called the two-figure theory. Look closely at the text again. In verses 5 through 9, Daniel sees the terrified vision and collapses. He is out cold. Then, in verse 10, a hand touches him. The theory suggests these are 2 separate events. First, Daniel sees the glory of the pre-incarnate Christ, the lightning face, the fire eyes. That is the revelation. Christ appears, reveals his glory, and Daniel falls. Then, after that vision passes or fades, a second figure, an angelic messenger, steps in to wake Daniel up and explain the delay. This theory suggests that the glorious one was Christ, but the one who got stuck fighting the Prince of Persia was the angel messenger who came afterwards. It explains why Daniel's description shifts from face like lightning to one like the appearance of a man. It explains why the messenger needed help without diminishing the glory of the first vision. It allows us to have our cake and eat it too. We get the majesty of Jesus and the reality of the angelic struggle. So, what are we actually looking at in Daniel chapter 10? Whether it is Christ limiting his power, a supreme angel reflecting God's glory, or a complex two-stage visitation, the takeaway is terrifyingly clear. We are given a glimpse into a reality that is happening right now, just beyond the spectrum of visible light. The text reveals that behind the movements of nations, behind the rise and fall of empires like Persia, there are titanic spiritual forces at war. It tells us that our prayers are not just words vanishing into the ceiling. They are ammunition in a cosmic conflict. Daniel's prayer triggered a war in the heavenlies that lasted 21 days. The vision of Daniel 10:6 shatters the comfortable, domestic image of the divine. It reminds us that the being we worship is not a tame lion. He is fire, he is lightning, and his voice is the sound of a multitude. And sometimes, understanding who he really is requires us to look at the details that scare us the most.